Hey guys, it's Chelsea from Little Mountain Ranch, and today I'm going to do my second video in my food storage, my 2019 food storage video series. And today we are going to be doing a tour of my root cellar that you can see behind me here. I'm going to try to pack in as much information as I can about the construction of this root cellar, what I store in this root cellar, and how I store what I store in here, and some of the things that I've had to troubleshoot, especially this year because it's been so darn warm. We're pretty sure that this cellar was actually built in the 1920s, the late 1920s, early 1930s, just based on the rest of the buildings on our property. It was updated in the early 1980s, and a concrete entrance was put in, as well as a concrete slab for the roof, and that's probably because it had started to cave in. Before we get into the root cellar, I'm just going to take you up above and show you the ventilation that I have in this root cellar and how it looks from up there. So as you can see here, this is one of my vents for my root cellar. I have two of these vents, and this is a 4-inch PVC pipe, I think it's about 4 inches, that goes all the way down into the root cellar. This is for air circulation and ventilation, and this is a really important component of a root cellar. This T on the top is just to stop, obviously, rain and snow and things like that from getting in, but still allowing a lot of circulation. So I have one here, and then another one right here. So this gives you a little bit of a better perspective of distance. So my house is up here. This is where I was just standing up on the porch. And there's a path that comes down and then goes around here to the entrance of the root cellar. One of the things about digging a root cellar like this is you do need some kind of slope to put it in. So sometimes having it really close to your house isn't practical, but I can tell you if you can do it, do it, because the last thing you want to do is be trudging outside in the middle of winter and having to go a long way to go get your produce to make dinner at night. One of the other things that I would recommend if you're considering building a root cellar like this is to have power running to it if possible. There's been a couple different reasons that I've needed to run power to this space over the last couple of years. One is to run a fan when the humidity level was a bit too high, just to help the air circulate a little bit better. And the other is to add in a little bit of extra lighting. As you can see back there, there's a trouble light that I just brought down for the purpose of this video. In last year's video when I showed you my root cellar, I only had my cell phone and the lighting wasn't fantastic, so I brought in this light so we can see with a little bit more detail. Okay, the first thing that I want to show you here is this hefty door. This door is 2.5 inches thick, and it is solid and insulated. This is really important, of course, insulated doors. The door on the inside is actually 3 inches thick and also insulated. This walkway that you can see here that actually goes back into the root cellar itself is 13 feet long. If the root cellar were not dug as far back as it is, it would freeze, because this entranceway right here does actually get below freezing, which is kind of unfortunate because it's a lot of wasted space, but it does serve a purpose. This is another area here that we believe was rebuilt in the 1980s. These are treated logs that you can see here that were used as retaining walls for the alleyway that goes back into the root cellar. I'll just give you a quick peek at the outside of the root cellar itself. There's a rock wall here. I actually put that in when we first moved here just to stop the dirt from coming down in this area. This actually used to be logs here, but they have since rotted away. You can see up here, this was built with railroad ties. This is not a building material that I probably would have chosen, due to the fact that, of course, railroad ties are soaked in oil and all other sorts of chemicals, and in my opinion, probably not the best building material to use in a place that you're going to store food. But it was here when we got here, and it's not something that we're going to be rebuilding anytime soon. One of the fortunate things is that the railroad ties were used in the entranceway, and back in the root cellar itself where I'm storing my food, I don't have the railroad ties there. Okay, let's get into the root cellar and I'll show you what's going on in there. Okay, here we are in the creepy root cellar. The kids don't like coming down here at night because it is a little bit eerie, I have to admit. This year was not the best year for root cellar storage. If you look back on my last year's videos, I'll create a playlist of my root cellar videos and put them somewhere up here if you want to go and check those out. Last year was a fantastic year. This year, not so much. We had a lot of cold weather, unusually cold weather really early, and then it warmed up, and right now it's 7 degrees outside, which is incredibly warm for us here in British Columbia. One of the disadvantages of having a really warm, wet fall is that it creates a lot of extra humidity in the root cellar and also doesn't allow it to get quite cold enough to keep everything at optimum freshness. The ideal root cellar temperature is around, similar as the cold room storage in the house, it's around 11 degrees Celsius is kind of ideal. A little bit colder is fine as well. And like I mentioned in one of my garden videos towards the end of the summer, My cabbages that I have stored in my root cellar molded really quickly. Last year I had one of them last, I think it was about 8 or 9 months in the root cellar. This year I've had to freeze and make sauerkraut out of them and get them right out of the root cellar. I just left this one in here so that I can show you how I store my cabbages, because it is a really great way to store cabbages when you're not dealing with super high humidity. As you can see here, I have my cabbage, and then I have the root ball actually still attached to the cabbage. I can't remember where I learned this. It was some old farmer from around our area that told me about storing them like this, but this is an excellent way to store cabbages, and I've had great success with storing them this way. One of you actually recommended hanging them from the ceiling as even a better way to extend their life. I haven't done that yet, but it's something that I want to try next year. One of the other issues that we've been dealing with is rodents like crazy. Mice, mice, mice. Normally I might get 1 or 2 mice in my root cellar, but it's never an issue. This year I put hundreds of pounds of apples in my root cellar. Thankfully, I came down to check on them within a few days of putting them down here, and quite a few of them had been nibbled on by the mice. So I brought them all up to the house, threw the bad ones away, washed everything really well, and turned them all into applesauce because I just didn't want to risk losing that many apples. So far, there doesn't seem to be a lot of rodent damage on the rest of my stuff, which I'll show you in just a sec. Okay, this lighting is really awful, I apologize, but this wall here, this is a concrete wall, and the entire north-facing wall of this root cellar is concrete, as well as inside about 3 feet in to the alleyway that heads outdoors is also concrete, as well as the ceiling, although it still has the wood on that was used as the form, so I can't really show you that. And what's holding the ceiling up are these sonotubes filled with concrete, and they also have footings here to hold everything in place. So I feel 100% safe in here. I'm not worried about it collapsing on me or anything like that. It was really well constructed when they put all of this concrete in here. And as you can see, the rest of it is all dirt. So it's a big, giant cave. I'll see if I can give you an overview. And a dirt floor as well. I store a lot of my food, my beets, my rutabagas, my turnips, and my parsnips in big bins like this. One of the advantages, sorry this light's so awful guys, one of the advantages of storing in bins like this in a root cellar where you could potentially have rodents is the fact that they cannot climb up the side, so all your food in here is protected. The only thing is you want to make sure that you don't fill them up all the way, because that'll put too much weight on the vegetables down below and then cause them to get squished and rotten. About halfway is perfect. I ran out of storage containers this year and decided to try using some cardboard boxes to store my carrots in, and fortunately it seems to be working perfectly. Carrots store super, super, super well in this root cellar, and I've thankfully not been having to deal with a ton of sprouting. The last couple of years I've actually been storing all of my carrots in those big bins that I just showed you, layered with down sand, which I have found to be an excellent way to store them. But my good friend Mindy from Life Goes North tried that in her root cellar, and because her root cellar temperature was high, they actually all ended up sprouting in there, and I felt so bad. But so that's actually a tip I wanted to give you, is doing this kind of lifestyle is really trial and error, and you can get as much advice as you want, but every situation's different, climate's different, the way you garden is different, all of that kind of stuff. So you really have to just experiment where you are with what you have, and over time you'll learn. I've been 4 years on my property now, and I feel like I'm just starting to get a handle on it. And then even still, nature threw me a curveball, like having a really warm, extended autumn, which has thrown things off in my root cellar a little bit. But I will make some adjustments and some changes, and then next year, hopefully it will be even better. Okay, here is another way that I store them, in plastic milk crates like this. These are actually another excellent way to store. I do actually like the big lick tubs, the big giant tubs I showed you better, because like I said, the rodents can't get into it, but the rodents don't really seem to like things like turnips that much. So they are doing just fine. I do have a bit of sprouting going on, and again, that has to do with the warmer than usual temperatures, but I just go along and pull off all these little sprouts. And for things like turnips that I use really kind of as a filler in stews and stuff anyway, I'm not really worried about the flavor being that strong, and turnips are such a strong flavored vegetable anyway. One of the issues you can deal with sprouting sometimes in your vegetables is that the flavor just kind of leaves the plant. It puts a lot of its energy and its sugars into growing those greens. And so then your roots sometimes aren't that great. But like I said, with turnips, it's not such a big deal. I also have a couple more bins of carrots back here. I think I have about 7 or 8 of these sized bins of carrots. I didn't get a ton of parsnips this year, just a few. So one of the things that I've tried to do to help to deter the rodents in my root cellar is to put mint. I grew a ton of mint, and I put mint all around the doorways and all around the edge of this root cellar. I don't know if it's gonna help, but as I mentioned in my last video, mice don't like mint at all. So I use that as a deterrent. So hopefully it helps a little bit. One of the other issues that can happen in a root cellar is mold. It's very typical for that to happen because it's a really high humidity space. So one of the things that I did last year that was super effective is I sprayed down all the dirt and the floor all with a mix of thieves and tea tree oil and water, and just kind of sprayed everything down. I washed my crates really well and disinfected them before I put all of my vegetables in there. And that actually made a huge difference with the mold last year. So I did the same thing this year, just kind of soaked everything down. And my mold issues aren't huge this year. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you guys might want to know. If there is, please drop them in the comment section below. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a video at the end of this series, a Q&A video, and answering as many of your food storage questions as I can. If they're easy answers, I'll just drop them in the comment section under your comment. But if they're a little bit more complicated, then I will put them in my Q&A video. I had asked in my last video whether you would be interested in a freezer tour video, and it was definitely a resounding yes, that's something that you guys want to see. So I'll be doing a freezer tour video. I have 3 large deep freezes, and in that video I will give you a thorough tour of it, but I'll also talk about why I choose to freeze or can or dry certain foods. Holy cow, you scared me. Hi.
Sorry. Sorry, Coach.
That's funny.
Bye.
Bye, honey. My eldest son just came to say bye before he heads home. And he said, how can you be sitting in here? It's so creepy. But it doesn't creep me out at all. I actually just love everything about this root cellar, the smell of it, the feel of it, the temperature of it. This root cellar would be a lot more full, or a lot fuller, if I didn't have my cold room in the house. But like I showed you in my last video, I store a ton of food up in that space. I feel really blessed to be able to have both of these different spaces. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button down below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, I have quite a few videos coming up that will be about my food storage, how I put up all the food that I grow during the summer months. Please consider subscribing. I would love to have you here as part of this awesome community. I'll see you all soon, guys. Bye.